Howdy, folks. Welcome to Redneck Gone Green. I'm your host, David Cobb. I am the redneck, and you bet I've gone green, and I'm trying to convince you to do so too. And remember, on this program, when we say go green, we mean that in two very profound ways. The first, deep green, ecology, not merely conservationism or environmentalism, but a recognition, an appreciation, a true understanding that all life is interconnected. And whether you come at that realization from an eco-spiritual perspective, or you come at it from a very hard-nosed scientific perspective, or like me, you say they are both true, the reality is that all life is connected, and anything that we do to that web of life, we ultimately do to ourselves. The second way I mean go green, and that is Green Party. I am a proud, unapologetic Green Party member and supporter because I know that the only way we're going to create a peaceful, just, democratic, and ecological society is if we build a broad-based movement. Ordinary people who are politically conscious, who are aware, who are working together, who are building that new world and engage electoral politics, but not as electoral fetishists, right? Not just chasing after the voter ID, not just door knocking campaigns. It's got to be something different. It's got to be where there is a mass movement of ordinary people who are building alternatives. And one of those alternatives is to build alternative political parties, because I know what you know and almost everybody in the United States knows, and that's this. The leadership of the Democratic Party has basically been bought and paid for by corporate America. But wait, there's a corollary, and that is that the leadership of the Republican Party has basically been bought and paid off by corporate America. So the Democratic and Republican Party leadership, yes, there are differences to be sure, but at the leadership level, they both basically agree that capitalism is the political economy. They basically agree with U.S. empire. They basically agree that the World Trade Organization, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, they basically agree that the society as it's currently operating is how it could operate. And I know what you know, and that is that the current society is literally created in a way to extract and exploit from working class people so that the rich can get even richer. And I don't know about you, but I've had it. I have absolutely had enough. Folks, for those of you who are Substack subscribers, you will already know that sadly, our guest tonight, Kali Akuno, my dear friend, colleague, and comrade from Cooperation Jackson, is not feeling well, so he's not going to join us. But Jack Rabbit, the handsome bastard and executive producer, has made a judgment call. It's him. Look, he's pointing to himself. For those listening to the podcast, you can't see, but he just pointed at himself. And that is, we're going to try something new, and that is we're going to do an actual live call-in show. What Jack just did 10 minutes ago was to send out a list to our subscribers and said, if you want to join the call, you can join. We'll put you into the green room, and we're going to literally have open lines, meaning we talk about. There you go. That's live, folks. We'll talk about what you want to talk about. And if nobody calls in, I got plenty to talk about. Make no mistake about it. For example, I will just lift up Jack Hemmings, who wrote in to say any independent party that is set up should ban any politician who accepts corporate or lobbyist donations. Jack, thank you for that. And in fact, I'm going to have somebody on to talk about a new 501c4 that we're creating called Build and Fight. The build and fight approach takes exactly what you're describing and literally build it. But instead of it being just an independent party, what we say at Build and Fight is we are going to build a political formation that says, whether you're a member of the Democratic, Republican, Green, or Socialist Party, or decline to state or independent, we want to give you a series of questions about democratizing the economy, democratizing elections, democratizing the law. And will you make a pledge that you will not seek or accept corporate money? Right? And so that will give us an opportunity to really weed out the folks who can talk a good game but are still addicted to that corporate cash. Because I'll tell you, corporate cash it's like a crack cocaine addiction. I just don't think there's any way around it. So Jack, thank you for that idea. Completely agree with you. We got to get corporate money completely out of elections. It is completely corrupting the democratic process. And the other thing that I thought that we could talk about today, and again, people keep those comments coming. If anybody is a subscriber, check your email and you've got a link to the studio line and you could join us. Another indication, folks, if you're listening to me or watching live or watching the video, go to our Substack. We have over 4,000 subscribers. If you were a Substack subscriber, you would have been able to join Redneck Gone Green going live. So the next thing that I thought that we might actually talk about, and that is to put up a big huzzah that Kristen Sinema in Arizona is not running for re-election. So her election sets up a showdown between Democratic Representative Ruben Gallego and Carrie Lake for Senate. Now, I don't really have a dog in that hunt to get down to it, but I do want to just point out that Kristen Sinema in my world is famous. Is infamous for voting down a federal $15 a year minimum wage a few years ago, literally high-fiving corporate Democrat Joe Manchin to kill a filibuster reform, and basically having a long history of kowtowing to corporate interest, all while hiding behind some kind of idea that she's a, quote, moderate. So literally today, she announced she's not running for re-election, and at least in my circles, people are cheering that. So, to me, I think that just shows the power that progressives have if we actually unite and fight. And I think it's really important that we recognize that the only way we have power is if, in fact, we unite the class. And by class, I don't mean socioeconomic class. I mean the non-owning class. And with that, I'll take a moment to point out, I know I've got folks who love to troll me and they say, I got you. You're a socialist. I got news for you. I am proud of that. I'm an eco-socialist. I believe that we should democratize the economy. I believe that we should create a system where all human needs are met as a matter of the social contract. I think these idiot right-wingers have gotten so used to tepid, weak-kneed liberals who are scared of the word socialism. They're not accustomed to an actual proud socialist that says, damn right, not only I'm not a socialist, but I'm going to advertise it. I'm going to advocate for it. I'm going to wear it on my t-shirt. I'm going to try to convince other people to do it too. You think you're going to scare me? Well, come on with it, as we say where I'm from. Like, I am proud to be a socialist, and I'm going to try to convince other people to do it. But I'm a different kind of socialist. I'm not an old-style industrial democratic centralist socialist. I'm a bottom-up eco-socialist. I'm a socialist who understands the need to put those things together. Jack says, some people say you're a socialist like it's a bad thing, LOL. Jack, you're my kind of person, right? Like, I think that we need to actually own it and put it right back to people and say, damn right we are. Why aren't you? Don't you think people should have access to healthcare as a fundamental human right? Don't you like libraries? Don't you like public roads? Don't you like water and sewer? I mean, the reality is that the socialist program is actually a just, humane, and compassionate program. So at the end of the day, I believe that this movement is coming into a moment. I do want to also just point out that Dave, who is a longtime listener and supporter, has written, has tonight's guest missed another show? The answer is yes. I'm afraid to say Kali is not feeling well, so he sends his apologies. We will reschedule him, but Kali Akuno will not be joining the show tonight. So I trust that we'll all send him best wishes for good health and the desire for him to rest and take care of himself.
Just as a heads up, folks. So the green room link is for our paid subscribers. So just wanted to make sure that that was clear. So it's not just our, not all of our subscribers, it's our paid subscribers. So that was our decision to invite folks onto the show tonight. So if you're not a paid subscriber, that's one of the ways that we can incentivize you to get your face onto the screen. You can talk directly to David and myself for that. So yeah, and speaking of wanting to get ourselves politicians that aren't bought and sold, I've got us a quick little video for somebody I think we'd be happy to have.
We're talking as if this is God. We're talking about little Rishi Sunak in the fag end of his prime ministership. Don't talk to me as if he's come down from the mount with tablets of stone. The things that he says are somehow meant to awe me. They may awe you, they don't awe me.
So this is George Galloway. Some of you may recognize him. He's recently got elected to office in England, and he's pretty amazing guy. So this is an interview with this, and as far as I'm concerned, this is how you deal with the press. So let's hear what he has to say.
A lot of people have just watched what the Prime Minister said. This is your opportunity to respond to what he said. Well, he says that there are forces here at home trying to tear us apart. He is implying you are a divisive figure. You have run an election campaign that has tried to appeal, particularly, not entirely, to one section of the community.
Who won the election? Me or Rishi Sunak? I've got the Democratic mandate here, not Rishi Sunak. He didn't even come second. He was lucky to come third. So don't put to me statements made by Rishi Sunak as if I'm supposed to be impressed by them. He don't impress me much.
We at Sky have spent some time today on the streets of Rochdale, and there are people who say that they feel intimidated by people like you and the people that have supported you.
I have just
and they have pointed out that you have concentrated your campaign on foreign affairs, and they worry that Rochdale will not be the winner.
That's my answer to you. I was just elected with a thumping majority by the electorate in Rochdale. That's all that matters to me.
So why are there people in the streets of Rochdale today worried?
Well, people voted yesterday, and they voted for me. Why is that difficult for you to grasp?
Worried.
There may be people who didn't vote for me who are worried, but the majority, the thumping majority, voted for me. I've got the mandate, and I'm going to the House of Commons with it.
And it's a mandate, you think, to do what? Because there are people that listen to what you say about whether or not Israel has a right to exist, what you say about what many Jewish people think are threatening
we had this
slogans.
Conversation last night. Why are you reheating it?
Because in the light of the Prime Minister's
don't keep telling me about the Prime Minister as if he was Moses.
Do you not respect the Prime Minister?
Do I respect the Prime Minister? I despise the Prime Minister.
I mean, really, just love that stuff. But
that really is a masterclass, by the way. I mean, did you see how that corporate media operative is so accustomed to completely controlling the narrative and forcing the conversation through a particular lens? And George Galloway,
have none of it.
Unapologetic leftist, was having none of it and refused completely to knuckle down and accept it. And would that there were more politicians with the courage of George Galloway.
Yeah, I mean, like, and I also have another little clip that I wanted to share about the politicians that we do have. So let's take a quick look at this. This is
cut it, and you're going to cut this, and you're going to clip this so that it's completely out of context. I already said that it was, and y'all are just going to pretend that it wasn't over and over again. It's fucked up, man. You're not helping these people, and you're not helping them.
You refuse to.
You're not helping them.
So that was so that people know, if you're not familiar with what that clip was about, that was AOC being confronted while she was returning from a movie theater, and basically being confronted by people who were demanding that she call what is happening in Israel in Gaza genocide. And that was her response. That was how she had that was what she had to say to her constituents. So, you see, there's quite the difference between a George Galloway and and AOC / Kristen Sinema / Nancy Pelosi. I mean, she's basically baby Pelosi at this point. Really, is what we need to really be referring to her as.
Heartbreaking to me. And I do want to actually go to the comment section. Jack Hemmings pointed out on the Galloway clip, look at those women from Rochdale with their arms folded. They are not pleased with that reporter. I mean, you're talking about somebody who literally, George Galloway, who just got elected, as he says, with a thumping majority, and his own constituents just sort of rallied around him and was right there, Johnny on the spot. And, you know, look, I got to say this, like, whether it's AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, or anybody else in Congress, I think that we make a mistake if we don't recognize that it's not that there are, like, look, this system is totally corrupt. This system, the capitalist political economic system, is genuinely evil, and good people do evil things because of a system that they're in. And one thing that I've just come to understand, Jack, and that is that the system, like people who think that they're going to get into the system and change it from within, you don't change the system changes you. That's why we have to build genuine, authentic, independent from the bottom up organizations. And I just don't think we can make change within the Democratic Party.
Well, I think it's really important for people to understand. I saw AOC right after she got elected, and she was actually in a talk with Ada Colau from Barcelona and Camus. So I don't know if folks who are watching saw our episode on municipalism where we interviewed Kate Shea Baird about her, her experiences working with Barcelona and Camus, which is this, locally based political organization that actually got some seats in the mayorship and some seats on the city council in Barcelona. It was on a platform that was very like super democracy, really great folks, and AOC was there. She was there talking about it. It was very encouraging. It was really exciting to see her there. I actually, me personally, it's hard for me to say this. I went to DC and I got my picture taken with her, and I was smiling and I was excited. And, honestly, I feel like, I was totally fooled. I feel like a fool for feeling that way, except exactly like you said, David. I mean, I think it is, there's no question in my mind. Oh, that's the other thing. Cori Bush. Are you familiar with Cori Bush, David? I mean,
of course.
Before Cori Bush got elected, it was in whenever I can't remember exactly. It was early on, right after Bernie had announced his election, and Cori Bush drove up from Kansas City. I think that's where she's located. She drove up from Kansas City and spoke at a rally for Bernie. This is before she got elected. She didn't have to do that. She came up there, and I was like, she came out to, have lunch with us afterwards. And, I was one of the organizers. She came and had a nice person, totally seemed completely authentic. I mean, like, she was a nurse. She was like on the front lines with Black Lives Matter in Kansas City. I mean, it was like, she's not somebody who's just like, she wasn't planning on being a career politician. She's not the Democratic Party takes people in and they pollute them, they twist them. It's clear. It's obvious that it's the system itself that has these perverse incentives that just twist people, well-meaning individuals, into, I mean, I don't know what you would describe them as now, but
yeah, I mean, look, again, I think that it is the proverbial boiling water, or a frog in the boiling hot water that just acclimates, right? Because, like, look, let's take AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, as an example. She was not supposed to win that first election. She, quote, came out of nowhere. And by the way, many of her campaign staff were not only former Bernie supporters, but also Green Party people. Right. So it was a genuine grassroots campaign. It was a very well-run campaign. AOC is an amazing candidate. Right. And when she first came in, she came in speaking truth to power, including, by the way, standing up to Pelosi, Speaker Pelosi, and speaking up to the Democratic Party leadership. And what I saw over time was her accommodate, acclimate, to the point that she literally called Speaker Pelosi, quote, a mama bear protecting the Democratic Party. And I just really think that that's worth pointing out that, again, we make a mistake by focusing on electoral politics exclusively, and we make a mistake if we think that the Democratic Party is the place where we're going to actually be able to make the kind of change that I want to make. And again, folks have heard me make this rap before, but I'll take this opportunity to say the recipe for systemic transformational change in this country is very easy to describe. It's hard to do, but it's very easy to describe. It's really basically a two-step process with a couple of subcategories. The first is you need a mass movement, right? And by mass movement, we mean lots of people on the ground in the pool halls, the bowling alleys, the barber shops, the beauty salons, all of the places, ordinary people actively involved, both broad and deep, politically conscious and aware, not just what team you're on, but really an understanding of the intersection of white supremacy, capitalism, heteropatriarchy, settler colonialism, a real commitment and understanding of that. So you need a broad-based mass movement, and that mass movement has to be involved in creating new alternative institutions, institutions that are not sanctioned by either the leadership of the Democratic or Republican Party or of Wall Street. And those institutions have to be genuinely independent. They have to be organized at the grassroots from the bottom up, and they have to have institutional self-respect, right? So a broad, deep mass movement. Then step two, you have to have an electoral arm representing the interest of that mass movement that goes into the electoral sphere. But you don't enter into that sphere without the broad-based mass movement and being successful, because otherwise you're not able to codify any of the wins that you get. And so if you have both of those two things happening, then you can make broad systemic transformational change in this country. And to prove it, let me give you a list of what was accomplished when there was a broad-based mass movement and an alternative electoral party formation advocating, expressing that at the ballot box. Again, it has to be both at the same time. But when you have that mass movement and you have the political party, here's what got accomplished in this country. You ready for this list? The abolition of slavery, women getting the right to vote, the creation of the Social Security Administration, unemployment insurance, workers' compensation laws, pure food and drug laws, ending child labor, the direct election of the United States Senate. For goodness sakes, folks, the entire fabric of what we today would consider the bare damn minimum for a decent, just society, that fabric was woven together thread by thread, strand by strand, by mass movements and alternative political parties, sometimes called third parties. And these were alternative parties who did their work in organizing when they were called naive and unrealistic. These were third-party organizers who did that work when they were called dangerous un-Americans. And these are people who did their work when they were called spoilers. So today, if we want to live in a society, not just talk about it, but actually live in a society that will end war and empire building as U.S. foreign policy, if we want to live in a world that will transition away from the fossil fuel mania that's literally destroying the ecosystem, if we want to move towards renewable energy and sustainable energy, if we want to live in a world that will dismantle the World Trade Organization and the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, if we want to live in a world that will guarantee, as a matter of human right, access to healthcare and housing and art and culture, if we want to guarantee that we have peaceful revolution, then we're going to have the same courage and conviction that people did before us, and organize, educate, and really get involved, not just in electoral politics, but in social movement work. That's how it works. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Thank you. I'm getting applause for those of you who are listening to this podcast and not watching visually. You're seeing Jackrabbit, our executive producer, give me silent applause. So thanks for that. And and thank you to Dave for Dave writes into the comments section, powerful rant. The point I'm making, y'all, is we can do this, but we have to do it ourselves. We can't wait for somebody else to do it. That's the reason that Jack and I have created Redneck Gone Green, because we want to create not just a media that is independent, but we want to have a voice so that we can have conversations with each other that is not dependent on the corporate media. That's not filtered by the corporate media. The reality is that Facebook, we know, is already filtering us. They're already shadow banning us. They're already preventing our word from getting out. That's why it's so important that you, the listener, subscribe to Redneck Gone Green. Go to the Substack and subscribe. We've got over 4,000 subscribers and growing, but also go to our YouTube channel, like that channel and become a subscriber on YouTube. Go to Rumble and join our Rumble channel. Like the reality is, download this podcast and share it with other people. Again, not just because it's David Cobb and Redneck Gone Green, but because we need independent voices using independent media to build movements and not just speak truth to power, but actually lay out what is to be done. Because I have a plan about what is to be done. Building a cooperative society where we live, work, play, and pray. Worker-owned cooperatives, community land trust, public banking, participatory budgeting, and engaging in electoral politics without succumbing to, and again, remember, I will support progressive Democrats if they will take a pledge not to take corporate money. To me, like, and I get a lot of grief, Jack. Some Greens think I'm a sellout for doing that. Other people think I'm foolish because I won't quit the Greens and join the Democratic Party. And what I say is, I am not interested in being popular. I am interested in being a successful, peaceful, nonviolent revolutionary. So as I look at it, Jack, I think that people who think that you can work within the Democratic Party and get results, they're the naive ones. You know, as you know, Jack, I think, and others, I don't hide from the fact that I've got over 30 years of sobriety as a recovering alcoholic. And one of the things that we say in the program is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. That is the very definition of insanity. And I think that there is a long history of insanity, thinking that somehow you can work within the two-party system and make transformational change. The only way transformational change has ever happened is whenever ordinary people organized outside of it and forced the two-party system to react to us, not begging and pleading, but instead exercising real peaceful power.
Well, I think one of the important things that I take away from all this, besides the fact that you're an awesome speaker, is that, you know, people see that there is something wrong. One of the things that you say is like, "Oh, ain't it awful?" Right? But there's more. But wait, there's more, right? And so, you know, I think what's really important about about what your message is and what you've been sharing with folks in these episodes and just kind of like in what you do in life is that, you know, there are accessible things that are available to you to be able to do, to be able to change and make a difference in that awful that we all can agree on, right? So the people who are going to be listening to the show, watching the show, are already convinced to a certain extent that things are awful and that something needs to be done. And so one of the things that I really love about what Redneck Gone Green is doing is, you know, really kind of saying to people, this is what can be done. And what I want to point out is that, yeah, we need to do it. We're the cavalry. Cavalry's not coming for us. We're the cavalry. And, you know, starting at the local level, I think is a really important thing. But one of the things I also think is so important, and that I believe that you're kind of bringing out and you're discussing as well, is that there needs to be an organization. There needs to be collective action that happens. And so, you know, what I feel like the message, what my message is to people is to be able to kind of start at the level that they are at, what they have available to them, where they are, and do as much as they can. You know, I think that one of the things that can can kind of happen for folks is that they get intimidated, they get overwhelmed, feel like that, change isn't accessible to them because of whatever their limitations may be. And I think it's important that, people keep in mind that you can have a revolutionary spirit and also, do what you can do. And that is enough, right? I mean, I think that we all want to aspire to greatness. We all want to aspire to be that firebrand, to be that person with the megaphone in their hand. But, not all of us can do that. And I think that being able to, reach regular people with a message of change and sustainable change is really important. And so, yeah, I mean, like, what do you think of that, David?
I completely agree. One of the things that I often quote is nobody can do everything, but everyone can do something. So figure out what your something is and do it. But you have to collectivize. We absolutely positively have to yes, work at the local level, but then confederate and build up. But the thing is, just going to some sort of national effort without building from the bottom up, that also won't work. I mean, again, we have a plan here at Redneck Gone Green about building at the local level, confederating like a rhizome or a mycelium network that's so large, so powerful that we don't wait for elected officials. We actually overgrow the government, not just overthrow the government, but we overgrow not only elected officials, but we overgrow capitalism. We overgrow the system itself. And the other thing that I think is a really just really needs to be said, and that is that we actually have far more power than we dare to believe if we come together and exercise that power collectively. There is very little that we can do as individuals that are going to be very meaningful. Now, we should do those things because they're the right thing. But the only way that we can go up against concentrated wealth and power is with coordinated, collectivized, organized people power. And
so,
organized,
David,
collectivized people power has worked.
David, I just want to interrupt you, because I think it's important for people to appreciate that that kind of organizing is happening, right? And I want to kind of touch on what you talked to me about earlier, which is that you have been actually attending a number of different conferences, meetings, gatherings, etc., to that end. So I just want you to share that with folks so that they know what is happening and also what to look for if they're interested in actually plugging into stuff like this.
Absolutely. So, and thank you for doing that, Jack. For example, I've been on the road actually for the last 3 weeks solid. I started off in Idlewild, Michigan, also known as Black Eden. Idlewild is very interesting because back in the day of the horrific Jim Crow segregation, there was something called the Green Book. The Green Book was created and passed around amongst African Americans to say, here are the restaurants you can eat at in a particular location. Here are the hotels that you can stay at. I mean, think about how horrific it is that they literally had to create a book because segregation was so harsh and so real that they were refused the ability to stay at a hotel room. They were refused an ability to eat a meal. Black folks were literally refused restroom facilities. So the Green Book existed to tell people about it. And the Green Book literally lifts up Idlewild and calls it Black Eden. It's in Western Michigan. It's in the woods. It was owned and operated by Black folks as camping, what we would now think of as glamping. It also had theater, it had music festivals, but the thing it was a place where Black people could go to be, quote, fully human and unapologetically Black, right? Where they knew that when they got there, they weren't going to, like, they weren't going to have to deal with white folks. They were not going to have to deal with segregation. Like, they could just go and be fully human. And just to hear that story is uplifting. That's why it was called Black Eden. I've got a colleague now named Blair Evans of Insight Focus, who is revitalizing Idlewild. Sometimes they say that it's Black Eden 2.0. But they're revitalizing the theaters, they're revitalizing the hotels and the restaurants. But also what they're doing is bringing permaculture into the mix. They're bringing digital fabrication, 3D printing and laser cutting. They're showing people, hey, this is how we can live with food production using agroecology and food sovereignty and permaculture principles. They're engaging art and culture as well as political education. They're building and incubating an entire ecosystem of worker-owned cooperatives. And to me, so I spent several days in Idlewild, frankly, being inspired and learning from the folks and what they were doing. But wait, there's more. Then I went off to do a 5-day strategy retreat with solidarity economy practitioners to grapple with how can we create not a strategic plan per se, but with strategic orientation, where we're saying this is the basic idea of what we're fighting for, what we're trying to build. And it is, in fact, build and fight. Build the alternatives, resist the harms, and fusing those two together. Then I went off to New York City for another, frankly, a fundraising session. Then DC to meet with folks at the Democracy Collaborative. Then off to San Antonio, Texas for a convening of the neighborhood economics, bringing together philanthropy and what are called catalytic impact investors to try to come together to say, how can we deploy sufficient capital to actually be transformational? And so this is the point, Jack. There's so much going on. I had the great privilege of knowing it, but that's also because I've dedicated my life to this. And again, I'm not saying everybody has to do what I'm doing, but because of the orientation, because of the strategic analysis that I have, it allows me to be in these kind of spaces. And again, nobody should try to think that they have to do everything, but everybody can do something.
So I want to just jump back real quick. Jack in the comments talks about how there is a story about how the slaves had a different Bible that didn't mention liberation, that they had all been removed. And I just want to just real quick, the reason that I need to talk about that is because it's so important to be able to spread the idea that change is possible, right? I mean, that was just like, brainwashing propaganda. It was just like this idea that the powers that be are so terrified of people just recognizing their own power. Am I right, David? Right.
Oh, 100%.
I mean, it's like, it's like just having this idea that there is a different way. It's one of the reasons why the Democrats are eager to absorb an AOC and a Cori Bush and turn them into like, like they're a sign that you don't have options. It's why they were terrified of Bernie Sanders, because, even though now we understand him as a sheepdog for the Democrats, which breaks my heart, and we've talked about that before. But at the time, I mean, you can see just the fact, regardless of his function as a sheepdog, that the very fact that Bernie was getting these ideas out into the public, that he was showing the country that there was a unified group of people that agreed that these kind of socialist ideas were viable, that they were something that we wanted. That in and of itself was horrifying to like the corporate media, to the established political power, because they didn't want people to know about it. They don't want people to talk about it. They want to marginalize those kinds of people. And so it's why I love that Jack brought up that point about the Bible and what slaves were allowed to see, and that the slave masters didn't want these ideas in their head, because God forbid that they actually like follow through with it and realize they had the numbers, and the slave, and there's one slave owner, and then there's everybody else, and that's where we are today. But
it's really worth pointing out that it reminds me the phrase "each one teach one," because that phrase originated during the enslavement of Africans who were denied education, including the ability to read. So, and there were literally laws that were harshly punished if an enslaved African learned to read, or if a white person taught them. So the whole point was to keep them in a state of ignorance about anything but beyond their immediate circumstances. So when an enslaved person learned or was taught to read, it literally became their sacred duty and responsibility to teach someone else. So the whole idea of each one teach one comes out of the idea that our liberation is dependent on each other. And we have to teach each other what we know, because the ruling class and the predatory class are never going to give us access to the tools, information, or analytical framework that will liberate ourselves. Ain't nobody going to liberate us but us.
That's right. That's right. Idlewild, fascinating. That's really interesting. So so you're saying, so is that something that kind of stopped? You're saying they're revitalizing, or was that, so that's,
well, yeah, they're revitalizing it because it kind of after the worst elements of Jim Crow segregation, it became less and less necessary for Black folks to feel like, you know, they had to go to this special place. So it kind of fell into some level of lack of such regular use. So it did kind of fall down. I'll tell you, I'm going to have Blair Evans on this program. He's an MIT trained engineer. His grandfather was the creator doctor and formed the first Black hospital in Detroit, Michigan. He also went on to found the Shrine of the Black Madonna. Blair Evans is a genius. And I've learned so much from him and about thinking about how to actually do this. So again, there are so many of these examples, but we don't hear about them because the corporate media does not want us to know about it. And it all hides in plain sight, Jack. It's not like repression and censorship, the old style where they go and beat you over the head and burn the books, but they just overwhelm it. They make it impossible to actually get to it. So to me, that's one of the things that we try to do here on Redneck Gone Green, is to lift up and amplify the voices of people who are actually building alternatives, people who are proving, not just talking about it, but proving this is what it looks like. And Kelly points out that people need to see that they're suffering in similar ways, that there are ways to fight back, and that they have the power to make changes if they come together. Education is everything. Education is power. Thank you so much, Kelly. I completely agree with you. And that's the reason that Jack and I and others do the work that we do here on Redneck Gone Green. Jack, I'm going to give you a chance for any closing thoughts, because we kind of had a free-form conversation. I want to see if you've got any thoughts, and then I'll close us out.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just, I watch a lot of like news podcasts, current events podcasts, and stuff like that. And it's wonderful to get analysis of what's happening, understand how things are moving, why things happen the way that they do and who's doing it. But one of the things that kind of can tend to do is to end up feeling kind of powerless, right? And education is really important. I think it's really important for people to know, for example, that there are people like the Democracy Collaborative who are working towards a solidarity economy and actually like have things in place to make that happen. And I think that if Redneck Gone Green can kind of do that and share that with people, help people to understand that there are people who are organizing to make this a reality, and also to help regular people, like anyone who is just like not necessarily directly engaged in these changes that we all understand that we need to have, right? But that they want to be, and for Redneck Gone Green to be here to be able to say like, yeah, it's awesome that about what's happening in Gaza and how horrible it is, and let's take a look at what we can do today at your home, in where you're at. Yeah, we understand that Biden and Trump are both two heads on the two monsters on the same coin, different sides of the same coin. But what are we going to do today, this week, this month in your area to be able to make a difference and make a change that's going to have effects around the world, around the nation, but that you can get involved in directly today where you're at. I think that is so important, and it's such a necessary counter to the kind of nightmarish dystopia that we see unfolding around us in real time. So, I'm really grateful to be a part of this with you, David, and I'm really glad for all the people who are here with us to kind of like share these ideas and this message forward into the future, into a more sustainable, more compassionate, more loving future.
Fantastic. And I loved how you said that, Jack. And I'm going to underscore, look, it's not as if we can just wish our way into a new world. We have to work, we have to inspire, we have to perspire, but we have to do it together. And the thing is, like, don't think that what can I do to change the world? Instead, I encourage you to ask yourself, what can I do today that will put me and my community in a position to do even more tomorrow? And that's the way that we can engage in what some folks call non-reformist reforms or peaceful revolution in a way that actually brings us closer to that world. So we're going to bring this program to an end. I want to thank you, Jack Rabbit, executive producer. I want to thank the viewers, listeners of Redneck Gone Green. Again, please join our Substack. That's where every week I write a column. Coincidentally, it's called Redneck Gone Green. But wait, there's more, because then every week here at Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, we have a broadcast live, and we simulcast it on Facebook and YouTube and Rumble. But wait, there's more, because then we post that onto those channels and take the audio and make it available to you as a podcast, all completely free. So get it wherever you get your media, and let's build this movement. I want to encourage you to join me next Tuesday, March 12th, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. My guest will be Lee Camp. I met Lee Camp the same time I met Jack Rabbit during the Occupy Wall Street. I've been a fan of Lee Camp's ever since. I think he's the funniest leftist in the U.S. today. If we had, like, he's basically the heir to Bill Hicks and George Carlin. Lee Camp is hilariously funny. He's a satirist of the highest order. And I can't wait for him to come with us next week. In the meantime, keep fighting. Don't quit. Stay strong.